Alright, today we're going to do a Mag.js to-do example using Firefox's proxy feature, and all that really is just it offers some more dynamism with Mag.js, like default values and things to the browser with the proxying. So this is going to be a to-do app, a really minimal to-do app. So we just have to think of the things we want to accomplish here. So first off, let's make a list of to-dos. Then we should have the ability to add new to-dos. And then lastly, the ability to remove to-dos. So why don't we get started? So as you can see here, I have a little template already set up, the module ID. So every Mag module starts with an ID. And here it's referenced over here. And then we have our object itself, which is a controller and a view, and the default properties, and the props that we set or send. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a list. Why don't we do that first? Alright, so let's really start simple here. So number one, list. Okay, so let's create a div. And I'll put a simple span in there. Actually, we don't even have to do that yet. Let's just create a list. Alright, so up here, we can say this to-do list equals array. And if we give it value, automatically in Mag.js, we start seeing values. See, there on the right, and so on and so forth. That's the power of Mag.js right there. But clearly we don't want to do it. We probably want to pass in a props list. And we're just going to make a really minimal list. Let's call it actually to-do list. Makes more sense. And there we go. Now the reason why you're not seeing anything is because we haven't mapped to anything here. And specifically, we have names to map to. So if we want to see that, we simply have to bind to it. And one of the 5 ways you can element match, such as class name, ID, tag name, data bind, or name attribute value. So there you go. You see, clean house. And that's from this, which is coming from here, which is being added here. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is to be able to add to-dos. So we're simply going to create a little form. There's going to be more to the list as well, but I just want to kind of give a really, really simple overview as much as possible before we get too into it. And here's our input field, and then we have our submit field. Alright, so we have our essentials to add something. What we don't have is anything in our Mag module to add. So why don't we start with that? We can stub some things out. We're going to use our onClick event. And all we're going to do here is really we're just going to add to our list, our state list. So this becomes state, and that binds to our element matchers. So using our proxy support, one of the things we can now do is, you see we have state to do input. It will automatically give us our value because we haven't yet defined it. So that's what proxying does. It basically defaults values based on element matchers when they're undefined and you're trying to access them. So let's see how that works. Let's just try to add something. Oop, and it refreshed the page. And that's because this is a form. So we have to basically cancel the default behavior. And you can do the E prevent default, but I'm just going to do return false, which is just simple. So we don't want the form to actually submit to the browser. There we go. So I think we've pretty much accomplished our first two tasks, list to-dos and add new to-dos. But the ability to remove to-dos is going to remove to-dos. That's a little more complicated, and it's going to require us also to have another field in our list, something to identify that it's done. And I think simply the easiest way to do that is, let's see here, I think right here, let's put something like that, a checkbox. So now we have a checkbox, and that we can check on and off. And based on it being checked, it means it's done. Let me add a little CSS here. So we have just a little tiny CSS, done. And basically what we want to do is, well, I think I'm going to close the HTML. So I think this is basically all the HTML for now. We might have to come back to it, but for now, let's just close it so we can have a clearer view of our JavaScript. So we basically want to create an on-click to our to-do list. So why don't we do that? So I mean, there's many ways to do this in Mag.js. It's very flexible. But one way here was we're going to look through our to-do list, and we're going to use some of the special options in here. But first we're going to just do the on-click, right? So why don't we just do that? On-click. And what we're going to try to do here is we're going to set the to-do list done to the checked property of the node. So now our item, this is only the first item, will be done. So what we need next, actually we do have to go back to our HTML, is that remove button. Alright, so let me do that. I'm going to put that right underneath here. So now we have a remove button, remove marked. Alright, so we need to create an action for that. We'll add this to our controller. Why not? This dot button on click event. Alright. So all we're going to do now is just basically filter our to-do list. We need to bind to this because we're accessing this. Alright. And we're going to say if the item is done, return false, basically remove it, else, return true, save it. Okay. So why don't we check that out? Doesn't seem to work. Alright, let's see what we're doing here. We have this to-do list here. I think what we're missing, oh here, why don't we just look in the console? That's always the easiest way to deal with that. If there's an obvious error, it says is undefined. I don't even think we need E. Why don't we? Oh, this E. Alright, we don't need E up here. We do need E down there. There we go. Alright, so we're setting the property based on the check value. And why don't we try that again? So if it's unchecked, it shouldn't remove it. And if it is checked, it should remove it. Alright, something's weird, so it's disappearing there. I think it's because we're missing our top level container. So when there's no more to-dos, there's nothing there. Why don't we just wrap it in another div and try that out. There we go. Alright. Here are the tricks you have to learn as you go along with Mag.js. Alright, so I think we have basically everything we need pretty much set up here to do what we like. Let's see a snapshot of that. So the only thing, let's see, if we add multiple fields, see how it keeps that check there? So basically we need to do something like onload, and that's where the special helper like config comes in. So what this is going to enable us to do is simply to access the node. This gives us some extra helpers, some useful tools such as an index, the node itself, is it newly added, and context that you can pass around to itself because this gets loaded over and over because it's in the view. Every change to state redraws the view, or recalls the view, I should say. So I think what we can simply do here is save the index, like so. So this is the node to-do list, but we want to actually get the checkbox, right? So that's its first child. We're going to set the attribute of the index of the parent, because if there's multiple, there'll be more than one. And what we're going to do with the checked, which we're having the issue is the radio box, is based on the state of that index, we'll add it to checked. Does that make sense? So basically the issue was, here, let me show the issue again. The issue is we have multiple boxes, and I check the first one, okay, but I remove it, then as it redraws it, the first one is checked, okay? So it hasn't actually added it programmatically based on the state of the to-do list item. But if we do that ourselves, then it should. So let's check that out. And there we go. So I think this pretty much covers up a really simple to-do list and shows you how fairly easy it is, but also that there's no magic here. You know, we're accessing the DOM, we're passing around attributes and properties, and you know, you have helpers. You know, you have access to things and helpers, and the ability to quickly talk to a specific part of the DOM, as well as remember it, and just basically shortcuts. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I will put the link to this as well in the description video, and you can walk through the different steps here, starting by number 1. Thanks.